He said, "I told everyone we're taking a break." I replied, "Okay." Then I thanked him for telling me. Instead, I took him at his word and made sure the break was permanent. I updated my relationship status and moved on. Quietly, he didn't realize what I'd done until much later. He said, "I told everyone we're taking a break, like it was already decided, like my voice had never mattered in the first place." I remember the exact moment because the cafe was too loud for something so quiet. Cups clinked, people laughed. The espresso machine hissed like it was trying to drown him out, but I heard every word clearly. He didn't look at me when he said it. He stared past me, at his phone, at his reflection in the dark screen, at anything but the person he was quietly discarding. I replied, "Okay." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why he had told everyone before telling me, but I noticed everything. The way his hand didn't reach for mine, the way he relaxed when I didn't resist, the way relief flickered across his face, quick and selfish. In that moment, I understood something he didn't. He thought he was pausing me. He didn't realize he had already lost me forever. I had spent 3 years becoming smaller for him. Not in obvious ways, not in ways anyone could point to and say, "There, that's where she disappeared." It happened slowly, quietly, in the spaces between his priorities and my patience. He was the kind of man people admired, confident, charming, the one who made decisions without hesitation. People mistook certainty for strength. I mistook it for safety. I met him when my life was still fragile, when I was rebuilding after losing a job that had once defined me. He stepped into that uncertainty like an answer. He told me I was stronger than I believed. He told me I deserved more. I didn't realize he meant more of him. Over time, I adjusted myself to fit his world. His schedule came first. His friends became our friends. His opinions became the final ones. When he dismissed my concerns, he called it logic. When he ignored my feelings, he called it focus. And I learned to accept it. Not because I was weak, because I believed loyalty meant endurance. He often joked that I was too calm, that nothing ever rattled me. He said it like it was harmless, like it was a personality trait instead of a warning. He never realized calm wasn't absence, it was observation. The first time he dismissed me in public, he smiled while doing it. We were at dinner with his friends. Someone asked how we met, and before I could answer, he said, "She was kind of lost back then. I helped her figure things out." They laughed lightly, like it was charming, like I should be grateful. I smiled too, but I remembered how his words erased the truth, that I had found my own way long before he ever noticed me. It became a pattern after that. He corrected small things that didn't need correcting. If I told a story, he would interrupt halfway through, finishing it his way. His version was always cleaner, simpler, better. Sometimes he would glance at his phone while I was talking, his thumb scrolling without urgency, his eyes barely lifting when I stopped speaking mid-sentence. He never apologized. He just assumed I would start again, and I always did. He began making decisions without asking me. Weekend plans, trips, even conversations about our future that he had already had with other people. Once at a party, I overheard him telling someone, "She'll understand. She always does." He said it with certainty, not appreciation, ownership. That was the moment I realized he didn't see me as someone who could leave, only someone who would stay. The moment didn't feel dramatic. There was no argument, no raised voices, no final, explosive betrayal anyone else could point to and say, "That's when everything ended." It happened on an ordinary Tuesday night. I was sitting across from him on his couch while he typed on his laptop, the blue light reflecting in his eyes. I had just told him about a job offer in another city. It wasn't a decision yet. It was a possibility, something fragile and new. He didn't look up. "That would be complicated," he said after a pause. "Not 'I'm proud of you,' not 'what do you want,' just complicated." He continued typing, like my future was an inconvenience he could minimize with enough indifference. A few minutes later, his phone lit up beside him. A message preview appeared on the screen. "Don't worry, I told everyone we're taking a break." My name wasn't there. But it didn't need to be. He hadn't discussed it with me. He hadn't asked. He had already rewritten our story and shared it with an audience. I hadn't agreed to face. I didn't confront him. I didn't interrupt him. I just sat there, watching him decide my life without me. And for the first time, I realized something simple. I didn't need his permission to leave. I didn't leave that night. I went home, placed my keys in the bowl by the door, and sat in the quiet of my apartment. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt honest. I opened my laptop and began with the smallest, most permanent step. I updated my relationship status, not to provoke him, not to make a statement, just to reflect the truth he had already announced on my behalf. Then I moved through the practical things. We had never married, no shared lease, No joint accounts. He had always preferred independence. It made things cleaner now. I gathered the few things I had left at his place. Books he never read, a sweater he never noticed, pieces of myself he had stopped seeing long ago. At work, I accepted the offer in the other city. I signed the contract digitally, my hand steady as I wrote my name. I didn't tell him. He had already decided we were on a break. I was simply honoring his words. I archived our messages, not deleted, archived, evidence of who he had been and who I had been beside him. There was no anger in what I did, only precision. He had created distance casually. I made sure it became permanent. He didn't notice at first. That was the part that stayed with me the most. Days passed. Then a week. My phone remained silent except for work emails and confirmations. The new job, the new apartment, the new life assembling itself piece by piece without him. I moved carefully, folding clothes into boxes, wrapping dishes in newspaper. Each sound in my apartment echoed differently, like the space already understood I was leaving. The morning I left, the sky was pale and quiet. My car was packed with everything he had never really seen. I placed my keys on the kitchen counter and looked around one last time. There was nothing dramatic about it, just absence where expectation used to live. Hours into the drive, my phone finally lit up. His name, I let it ring. A message followed. Why does your profile say single? I imagined him seeing it, the stillness, the certainty, the absence of explanation he had once given me. Another message appeared. I thought we were just taking a break. I didn't reply. He had chosen the words. I had simply made sure they meant exactly what they said. The messages kept coming over the next few days. At first confusion, then urgency, then something quieter I hadn't seen from him before. Can we talk? I didn't think you'd actually leave. That was the truth beneath everything. He hadn't believed I was capable of absence. He thought I existed in orbit around him, steady and predictable. Our mutual friends began reaching out, their tone careful, curious. Are you okay? He seems surprised. Not heartbroken, not devastated, just surprised. I realized then how he had described me to them: stable, loyal, permanent. Someone who endured, someone who stayed, not someone who chose. At work, no one knew the history I had left behind. They only saw who I was becoming: decisive, focused, present. My voice didn't hesitate anymore. People listened when I spoke, and I no longer rushed to fill silence that didn't belong to me. His reputation didn't collapse overnight. Life rarely offers such clean justice. But something shifted. The story he had told others, that he was in control, that everything was temporary except his certainty, no longer held, because I had left without asking. And people always notice when someone stops accepting less than they deserve. It matters because everyone at some point is underestimated, and everyone eventually decides whether to remain there. In the beginning, I thought revenge would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like quiet. Months passed, and his name stopped appearing in my thoughts the way it once had. Not because I forced it away, but because it no longer belonged in the life I was building. My mornings became my own. My decisions didn't need permission. My happiness no longer depended on someone else's recognition. I stopped checking for messages I knew wouldn't come. Not because he didn't try, but because I stopped waiting. In my new city, no one knew me as someone who endured. They knew me as someone who chose. I chose my work. I chose my time. I chose myself fully, without apology. Sometimes I thought about that moment in the cafe. His certainty. His assumption that I would remain exactly where he left me. He had believed a break meant pause. He never understood it was an ending. I didn't ruin his life. I didn't expose him. I didn't need to. I simply accepted the reality he offered and stepped beyond it. And in the end, the most powerful thing I ever did was nothing at all.